Okay. So I'm gonna move around a bit so that you all can see me as we're moving through it. But we're gonna start with, I'll show you both ways to put this on. If you have this resistance band, lacing it over your foot, hi Dan, or so the ball of the foot, so it keeps your foot in flexion, the ankle and dorsiflexion, and then right above the knee. If you don't have one of these, you can use a yoga belt the same way. We're not going to put it on yet. We're going to do a couple of things before we put the band on. But if you're using a yoga belt, just have a big, kind of a medium-sized loop that will make it easy when it comes to that point to loop around. So you can either use the yoga belt that way or a smaller resistance band. Either one of them will work. So we're going to start lying on our backs. Take the resistance band or the yoga belt and wrap it around the ball of your foot. So you want to make sure that it's on the pads of the foot, not the middle of the arch. And you're going to grip the other end of the yoga belt or the band with your hands. So we're just going to start first by bending and straightening this right knee. So pulling on the band to help to keep the foot or the ankle in dorsiflexion. And as you reach the knee towards extension, reaching your heel up towards the ground or towards the ceiling. You may find that you are not able to fully straighten your knee. That's okay. So just work in the direction of straightening your knee. And as you bend and you flex your knee, you'll also notice that down here at your hip joint, you're creating a little bit deeper flexion as you bend the knee and moving out of that slight flexion when you straighten. Then go ahead and find your leg as straight as possible. And you can kind of bring your heel closer to the ground, to the yoga mat. And you're going to start to point and flex your ankle. So pushing the ball of your foot into the band or the yoga strap. Again, you want the band wrapped around the ball of your foot rather than the arch of the foot. This is creating a little glide of your sciatic nerve on the back of your leg that continues down into your lower leg as the peroneal nerve. Good. Go ahead and wrap the either end of the band or the end of the yoga strap around the knee so that it holds your knee in flexion at about 90 degrees, and bring your right foot down to the ground. And you'll notice that this kind of keeps your ball of your foot off the ground, so it keeps the ankle in dorsiflexion, which is that deeper flexion. Bring your hands onto your hip points, those sticky out points at the front of your hips. We're just going to take a few rounds of a pelvic tilt. You may want to use a prop under your head to allow the bottom of your rib cage to relax closer to the floor. But with your hands on your hip points, start to move the hip points up towards the bottom of your rib cage. With this movement, you'll feel the lower back round and flex towards the floor. And then go the opposite direction, tilting the front of the hip points towards the tops of your thighs. And we're going to start to add a breath with this. So as you exhale, hip points towards ribs, low back presses into the floor. And as you inhale, hip points towards tops of thighs, low back comes off the floor. So we all have a different pace of our breath. So just use the pace that works for you. And then move your hands to the bottom of your rib cage and notice how much of the flexion and extension of the lumbar spine, the lower back, that you're actually getting from your rib cage. Can you minimize the rib cage moving at all? So placing the hands just to notice, do the rib cage thrust forward as you move into that extension or low back away from the floor? And do they round too much towards the floor as you exhale into flexion? Start to minimize how much you move forward and backwards until you find neutral. Neutral is with the sacral bone, that triangular bone at the base of your spine, which is a part of your pelvis, lying heavy on the ground. You're going to start to move just the right leg, so the one that has the belt around it. Bring your hands back to your hip points. And as you exhale, just lift your knee above your hip, shin parallel to the floor. And as you exhale, tap it. Let's switch the breath. So as you exhale, lift, knee over hip. And as you inhale, tap it. Begin to notice how much your pelvis rocks side to side or hikes up and down. And minimize how much movement you're getting from your pelvis and how much the rib cage is moving. The next time you bring your right heel to the ground, keep the heel on the ground and now move from the left leg. So same thing, as you exhale, lift left knee above your hip, and as you inhale, tap it down. And what you might notice is that the one that has the strap around it feels very different than the left leg. So for today's practice, we're intentionally stabilizing one hip joint by using the band or the yoga belt around it. And we're comparing it to the other side with the hopes of trying to notice what we need to do to create that same stabilization in the unbanded hip. Bring both heels down, lift the right leg as you exhale. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, lift your left heel. I'm going to change my view so you can see my heels are slightly in and my knees are separated. You're going to start to move from here. So as you exhale, tap your right heel down, the one that's banded. And as you inhale, lift it. As you exhale, tap left heel down. And as you inhale, lift it. Continue to alternate. Starting to notice this right leg is being kept stable and stiffened. Can you start to see if you can find that same movements or stability in the left leg? Good. Bring both heels down. Keep the band on the right knee and just swivel the hips side to side, releasing the tension in the lower back. So you may want to come up and watch what we're going to start to do, because it's going to be a little challenging to do this, or to do it and watch. So we're going to start from this same position, heels in, knees slightly out. The leg that is banded is going to end up swinging behind. So you're going to lift the right arm, and I know I'm not mirroring you right now, but you're going to lift the same arm that is banded. The left arm is going to come out to the side. You're going to start to reach with your right arm over to the left, and as you do, the left knee is going to come behind you. And we're going to do that a few times. So you'll start in this lying on your back, both arms over your shoulders. Right knee and foot are still banded together. Go ahead and lower the left arm down to the side, T to the body. Start to drop the left leg out slightly. Then reach with the right arm over to the left side. Right leg drops on the floor. Left knee comes behind you. Good. Roll back onto your back. We're going to do that 4 more times. So left arm out to the side, drop the left hip out to the side, reach with the right arm. As you shift onto your left side, right knee comes behind you. So the knee is going to end up in line with the hip. Roll back onto your back. Good. Left arm down, left leg out, reach with the right arm, roll up onto your left elbow, right leg kicks behind you. Yes. Roll back down. 2 more times. Left arm, left leg, reach to the left with the right arm, come up onto the left elbow, right knee swings behind. Good. Last time. Left arm down, left leg drops out to the side, reach with the right arm, use core to bring you onto your right elbow or left elbow, and then drop right knee down to the ground. So you're going to come up into a seated position. Right knee, and I know I'm not mirroring you, right knee is in line with your right hip. Right heel is in line with your right knee. The band is holding that part of your leg stable. Switch now to a little bit of shoulder work. I'm going to transition so you can see. You're going to take your right hand out, or your left hand out to the left side of your hip. You're going to take your right hand behind your head. I'm going to start to roll your rib cage. Left elbow. And then as you inhale, open back up. Exhale, roll rib cage towards your left elbow. Inhale, open chest towards this guy. Good. We're going to start to pay attention to what's happening to the left shoulder as you roll the chest open. Do you drop that shoulder forward? Can you keep it back? Can you keep the movement in the rib cage instead of depending on moving that arm bone back and forth? Good. Walk the hand in a little bit. Take your right hand and place it underneath your right sit bone. Start to drop your sit bone towards your hand as if it was going to melt towards the ground. So we are intentionally keeping this leg in internal rotation for over 2 minutes as we do other stretches. So keep your right hand underneath your right sit bone. Take your left hand and place it on your left ankle, palm facing up. Start to reach the arm straight up until it's right beside your bicep. You're going to turn the thumb forward, palm out, and bring the arm behind your back and touch the ground behind your right hip. Palm continues to face up with thumb in. Reach the arm straight back as far as you can. Then flip the palm over. Reach the arm up by your ear. And as you take it across, palm comes up, touch your right ankle, left ankle. One more time, inhale, arm reaches up. Turn the thumb forward, palm out. Let the arm drop behind you, palm faces up, thumb in, tap the ground. Palm stays facing up, go as far back behind you as you can. Roll the arm bone in the socket and then reach the arm up to your ear and cross it over to touch your ankle. Good. Grab a stick if you have it. If you don't, if you have the stick, bring it to your upper shoulders. If you don't, just bring your Hands to the tops of your shoulders with your elbows pointing straight out. Continue to let the sit bone drop towards the floor. Rotate towards your right knee and then tilt towards your right heel with the stick. Other end of the stick will rotate up. Draw a line with your nose, look at your right hand. Draw a line with your nose, look at your left hand. Draw a line with your nose, look at your right hand. Draw a line with your nose, look at your left hand. Stay in the twist, come out of the tilt, and then twist a little bit more. Maybe your chest starts to face your right knee. Let the sit bone get heavy towards the floor. Tilt to the right. Draw a line with your nose, look at your heart. Draw a line with your nose, look at the sky. Draw a line with your nose, look at your heart. Draw a line with your nose, look at the sky. Bring the head back to neutral, come out of the tilt, twist a little bit more, and then tilt again. Drop your chin towards your chest. Trace a line with your chin over your right collarbone, gaze towards your right hand, then let your gaze turn upwards. Gaze towards your left hand, drop your chin towards your collarbone, back to your chest, roll up. One more time, chin towards chest. Scrape your collarbone with your chin, look at your right hand. Gaze up towards the sky. Roll over, gaze towards your left hand. Chin towards collarbone, chin to chest. Come out of the tilt, come out of the twist, release the bar. Take the bar, bring it underneath, bring it along the edge of your thigh, and then under your ankle. So the stick is kind of propping up the ankle. Lift the foot as high as you can, and then maybe lift the foot off the bar. Start to fold towards your left thigh, keeping the right foot off the ground. Reach the knee back a little further, lift the foot higher as you roll the area above your knee towards the ground. Continue to lift as high as you can. And then roll the foot and touch. So as you roll the foot off the ground and back to the ground, feel the rotation inside the hip socket. It might help to bring your right hand onto the front of your hip, just to help to keep the pelvis still as you roll the leg internally and then down. If that feels relatively comfortable, you can come up and bring your hand in line with your left hip and do it from a seated position. Or you can stay on the elbow, or you can stay on your elbow with your elbow in line with your hip. So instead of going out over the front thigh, going in and out here. So pause with your foot up for a second and watch. We're going to keep our hand on our right hip. You're going to lift the knee off the ground and then roll the heel in so it taps in line with your sit bone, and then roll it back and tap the knee down. And just so you can see, I'm on my elbow in order to keep my spine longer and to help to keep the movement in my hip joint rather than rocking my pelvis forward and back. Good. Lift the leg as high as you can. Come down onto now your full side body, knees above your hip. You're going to bring the knee out in front and stack it on top of your left knee. And then you're going to lift it straight up towards the sky again. So a little abduction. And stack the knees. Check to make sure that the knees are in line or flush at the front. Keeping your left hand on your hip, you're going to reach that knee straight back. And I'll switch directions again so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going from hip flexion to hip extension. So my knee ends up being straight in line with my hip when I take the heel back. We're getting all the movements of the hip. And notice how much you're trying to arch in your low back or round in your low back in either of these directions. How much the hip point moves underneath your hand, and try to minimize how much that happens. Next time you come forward knee to knee, you're going to sit up. So the knee is still in the band. We're really working on creating dorsiflexion, which for some of us can be really hard. And in this position, I think it'd be easier to see from here. Hands are behind your hips. You're just lifting the heel off the ground. You're trying not to lean back to make it happen. You can walk your hands back further if you need more space, but can you make the action happen in the hip flexor? How's the hip feeling? We're not done yet. So we're going to gracefully as possible find a block. I'm going to take a blanket and I'll show you. The blanket is going to be on one side, so on the left side of your mat, so that you have also a part for your right knee to rest on. So your left knee is going to rest on the block. Your right knee is going to rest on the other side of the blanket. And I think it'll be easier if I demonstrate with my butt in your face. So left knee to the block. Right knee is on the blanket, hands on the ground, wrist below your shoulders. Start to push your knee into the block, so left knee in the block, as you lift your right knee as high up your inner left thigh as possible. Tap the knee back down to the ground and glide right knee back up left thigh. And if you can see, you'll notice that my left hip is not moving at all. So I'm not tilting to lift up. I'm pushing the knee down and almost pushing my inner left thigh towards my right knee as it lifts. So we're working on internal and external rotation in the left hip now. Lift the knees, the right knee to where it's even with your left knee, and move into that flexion and extension again. So draw the knee towards your chest and then take the knee back. Start to notice how much your spine moves and try to limit the movement of the spine, finding just the range of motion you have in your hip. Sometimes it helps to place another block in your low back so that you can feel if your spine is flexing or rounding. And then start to make circles with your hip. So knee in towards chest, take it out to the side, out, back, in, down. As you make 3 circles in this direction, notice if you're leaning to the left, and then do the same in the opposite direction, keeping left leg stable. Good. Release both knees behind the blanket and take a little child's pose. So toes tucked and close together, knees bent. You can bring your elbows to the block or to the floor. Just take a little stretch. So we're going to need the stick for the next part. We're going to start to progress this off the floor. So if you have the yoga belt and you don't have a stick, you definitely want to have a chair close by. So left knee continues to be on the block and the right knee is on the floor. You're going to use the stick in your left hand and you're going to step the right leg forward. Try to keep it in line with your hip as you go forward and back. Forward and back. I'll show it from another angle. So the left hip kind of has to hinge. So you have to go back and forward, back, forward. Keep the right knee on the ground. Switch the bar to the other hand and step the left leg forward. Now we're hinging in this hip. Take the hip straight back as if you could touch your sit bone to your heel and then squeeze, pressing the thigh forward. So hinge straight back and squeeze, pushing your pocket forward. Hip back, squeeze, hip back, squeeze. And you should feel a little bit of tension in your glutes as well as your quads. Good. Watch. This is tricky. So the same leg is forward, left leg is forward. You're going to put all of your weight on your left leg. Start to lean forward, stand up with the band around your knee. Yep. And we're going to do a variation of a deadlift. So you're going to bend your left knee as you take the right leg and knee up behind you. Squeeze to lift, knee forward. Bend left knee, hinge from your left hip. Reach right knee straight back. Good. Couple more. Bend left knee, hinge from your hips, lift right knee to right hip height. Last time. Good. Then we're going to, as gracefully as we came into it, lower the knee back down. Keep the right knee on the ground. Take the bar behind your back. You're gonna roll towards your right knee, left knee. Twist towards your right thigh. Tilt towards the left floor. Rotate chest up. Tilt to your right Rotate chest to the right. Rotate through center and stack it back up. Roll through your spine towards your left knee. Twist towards your left knee. Tilt to the left as your right hand lifts up. Then move chest towards the sky. Tilt to the right. Twist to the right. Roll to the center. Stack back up. Release the bar. Release down onto your bottom. Heels in line with your shoulders, lean back. Roll right knee in. Roll right knee out. Roll right knee in. Now we get to do all of that on the left side. So take it out. Legs long. Stretch out your leg. Roll right leg in. Roll right leg out. So can you find that internal rotation at the right hip joint with the leg straight? Good. So we're going to roll back onto our backs. Right knee is going to remain foot on the ground. Left foot, wrap the band around the ball of your left foot. And just start with bending and straightening the knee. As you bend and straighten, push the heel towards the sky. And feel the flexion happening at the hip, minimizing how much you feel the spine move towards or away from the floor. Then straighten the leg and point and flex the ankle. So push the ball of the foot into the band or the yoga strap, and then allow your toe to be pulled towards your head. Go ahead and wrap the band around the thigh right above the kneecap and bring both heels to the ground. So we've already practiced on the right side. So we're going to see if we can find that same stability, but first we're going to do the left leg. So hands on your hip points, find neutral. If it helps to do a few pelvic tilts again to find neutral, you can use it. Otherwise, just find neutral. Sacrum, base of the spine, heavy on the floor. Lift the leg, left leg, and then tap the heel. Use the exhale to lift the knee above the hip. Use the inhale to tap the heel down. Start to notice. Does this leg move a little differently? Are you able to keep the low back slightly off the floor? Keep the left heel down and see if you can move the right leg like it still has the band around it. Exhaling to lift, inhaling to lower. Lift the left knee, keep the left knee lifted, lift the right knee. We're going to start to alternate. So lower the left heel first, tap the left heel to the ground. Exhale, lift it back up. Inhale, tap a right heel. Exhale, lift it back up. You can shift your hands to the bottom of your rib cage and notice, can you move the hip without the rib cage flaring towards the sky or the low back pressing into the floor? Good. Take a break, both legs down, windshield wiper side to side. So we're going to start to roll onto our sides. So first, lift your left leg, keep the spine long as you lift the right leg. Heels are slightly in, knees are slightly wider than your hips, arms above your shoulders. Drop your right arm down and out to the side, T to the body. Start to lower the right leg towards the right side of your body. Reach with your left arm, roll onto your right side as you reach the left knee behind you. Good. Roll back onto your back. Find that same starting position. Right arm comes down, right leg drops out. Reach with your left arm, roll up onto your right elbow, left knee reaches behind you. Good. Roll back down. Right arm, right leg, reach with your left arm, roll onto your right side, left knee reaches behind you. 2 more times. Right arm, right leg, reach with the left arm, roll up to your right elbow, extend your left hip. Good. Roll back. 1 more time. Right arm, right leg, reach, lift, stay here, and come up. So this should put you in a seated 90-90 position. I can see that my green pants are not helping you see at all. I'll try to keep that in mind. So your right knee is in line with your right hip. Your left knee is in line with your left hip. Both knees are bent at 90 degrees. Take your left hand, place it under your sit bone. Start to lower your sit bone towards your hand. So in other words, you're not pushing this hip forward because that actually takes the leg into external rotation. We're trying to find internal rotation. So sagging that sit bone towards the floor is going to help to find that. Take your right hand to the floor outside of your right hip. So right in line. Left hand behind your head. Continue to reach your left sit bone towards the floor as you start to roll your rib cage towards your right elbow. As you inhale, stretch the chest towards the sky, gaze up. Keep the sit bone on the ground as you continue to roll towards the right elbow and then chest towards the sky. So the thing that we're really thinking about is how much of that rotation are we creating by pushing the right shoulder forward, and how much are we creating with pushing the rib cage forward? You want to minimize how much you drop the shoulder forward and try to keep the right arm as still as possible. Go ahead and come out of that. Grab your bar. Take your bar behind your back. We're twisting towards the knee that's banded, so the left knee. So first, just start to rotate towards the left knee, and then tilt the bar down towards your left foot. Bring the chin towards the throat, gaze up towards your right hand, gaze down towards your left hand. And do that a couple of more times. Try to trace a line with your nose. Come back to center, come out of the tilt, twist a little deeper, tilt again. Then roll chin towards chest, roll chin towards ceiling. Chin towards chest, chin towards ceiling. Chin in neutral, come out of the tilt, twist a little bit more. Now we do that head rotation. So drop the chin towards your chest, scrape the chin along your left collarbone, gaze towards your left thumb, let the eyes roll up, head rolls, nose rolls towards your right hand. Scrape down your right collarbone towards chest, roll up. 1 more time, roll chin down. Scrape it along your collarbone, gaze towards the left hand, gaze towards the sky, right hand, collarbone, chest, roll up. Release the bar. If you liked using the bar to lift your back foot, you can do that again. Or you can just roll out over your right thigh and start to lift left foot off the ground. So after you lift the foot off the ground, can you find more of the rotation in the hip joint rather than pushing the pelvis towards the ground? So you're not rocking your pelvis. You're just trying to roll the leg bone inside the hip socket. Lift it as high as you can and hold. Take a few deep breaths into your belly. So we are encouraging external rotation in your right hip as we're trying to train internal rotation in your back hip. Keep the leg lifted, come up. Take your elbow now in line with your right hip, keeping the left knee in line with your left hip. And again, come into that internal rotation. So top of the thigh where the band in is rolling towards the floor as the foot lifts away from the floor, hand on the hip, and then we're gonna roll knee up to face the sky. Roll knee down to tap the floor. Roll knee up, heel taps the floor. Do this a few more times. Notice how much you're rocking the pelvis forward and back. Can you keep check of the pelvis with the hand on the pelvis as you find more of that movement inside the hip joint? And you may notice that one side moves a little differently than the other. This may be close to impossible. We're going to now come down, head on the hand, stack the knees. We're going to lift the left knee straight up towards the sky and then down to touch. As you do this, again, using the hand, pinching your left hip to try to keep the hip from moving and maintain all of the movement inside the hip socket. Stack the knees, make sure they're flush at the front. Hand on your pelvis and take the knee straight back. So flexion and extension. Trying to bring the knee as far back as your hip and your knee would make a straight line. Notice how much you're arching in your low back. Try to minimize that. Get just the movement in the hip. And we're going to come up, bring that leg out in front. Right leg is straight. Lean back as far as you need to so that you don't have to move to lift the leg. So if you need to walk back the hands further so that you can just find the motion in the hip joint to lift the heel off the ground, knee towards your shoulder. We're finding hip flexion. Good. Now we're going to come on to the block. So now the block will be on the right side, and you'll have the padding underneath your left knee as well. We'll start with the, I'll do it this way. We'll start with the knee slides up. So hands underneath your shoulders, palms spread. Right knee is on the block, left knee is gonna glide up the right thigh, tap the ground. So take the left knee as high up the inner right thigh as you can. As you lift, push your right knee into the block and hug the hip in, almost as if your thigh, your inner right thigh, is moving towards your left knee. And then stay lifted. We're going into that flexion and extension. If it helps to place a block on your low back as a reminder to keep the low back in neutral. So neither rounded nor arched. Just move the knee as high up behind you as you can without hyperextending your low back. And only bring the knee as far towards your chest as you can without rounding your back. Take the knee towards your chest, create a circle in one direction. And then 3 in the other direction. Bring the left knee back down to the ground. I'm going to turn around and face you again. We're going to use the bar for balance in your right hand. Left knee is on the block. Tuck the right toes under for stability. Step the left leg forward. And then step it back, kneel. It takes a few times. So you're going straight through flexion and extension instead of trying to take the knee out. Can you bring it straight out in front of you? Can you step it straight back? Left knee stays down. Switch the bar into your right hand. Bring the right leg forward. And we're going into that hip hinge. So left sit bone sits back and then press pocket forward as you squeeze your left glute. So hinge back, squeeze forward. Hinge back, squeeze forward. Each time you squeeze forward, press your left knee down into the ground and as if you're going to shove it forward. So press and shove the knee forward. You should feel glutes as well as quads. Good. And we're going to stay with that right leg out in front, bar in the left hand. Shift forward, bringing the weight into your right foot. Use the stick and come up to stand. Don't lose the band like I did, but if you do, re-put it on there. And stand up. And then we're going into that deadlift. So right knee bends, left knee reaches behind you, lift it as high as you can, and then come forward, knee through. 5 of these. So right knee bends as right hip hinges, left knee extends behind you. 2 more. It's time to take the knee behind you and slowly lower the knee back down to the ground. Both knees on the ground. Heels touch, knees wide. Sit the hips back. Stretch out in child's pose. Come forward. Sit on your bottom. Bring the heels in line with the knees. Sit back and internally rotate and externally rotate the banded leg. So hopefully, when we unband, after we do this little stretch, just let the left leg roll in and out with a straight leg. Bring both soles of your feet together. Interlace your fingers underneath the outer edges of your feet. Stretch to the inseams of your pant as you reach the knees out and sit up straight. And then internal rotation, bring one leg back. Toes point back. Release your sit bone towards the ground. The knees are about hip distance apart. And switch sides. Good. Bring both legs out in front. This is called bear sit. So in this position, you're kind of leaning back, but your heels are about mat distance apart. Feet are flexed. Bring the arms out in front of you. Lift your right heel off the ground and hold. Tap the right heel down. Lift your left heel off the ground, shin about parallel to the ground. Knees moving towards the wall behind you. Lower. Again, right knee. So we're trying to keep a long spine. Lower. Left leg. Lower. Sit the feet behind you again. Knock right knee in. Take both knees over to the left. Bring your heel and your knee to touch. Take your hand of the front knee. I have no idea which way I cued this. So the arm that is the leg that is on the side that the legs are pointing, that arm comes up. The other arm is on the ground. You're going to lift up and stretch. Good. Shift both of your knees to the other direction. Bring the knee to rest in the arch of your foot. Hand in line with your hip. Hand on the side that your feet are, lifts up towards the sky. Lift the hips. Lower the hips back down to the ground. Roll hips through center. Reach the arms out. This time, roll one vertebrae at a time down to the ground. Continue to look in towards your belly as you roll down. When the head lands, keep the head down. Start to move the low back towards the floor. Roll the chin up and then reach between your knees, coming up one vertebrae at a time, only to where you feel just the low back, and roll down. So as you start to move, think of moving one vertebrae at a time to curl up, and one vertebrae touches down to the floor at a time to roll down. Good. Head rolls, roll up. Feel the low back press down. Keep the low back pressed down as you roll one vertebrae back down to the floor. Two more. Curl chin towards throat. Lift forehead towards thighs, roll up. Roll back down. Chin rolls in. Forehead between thighs, lift. And roll down. Bring the feet a little closer to your hips. Drop both of your legs off to the right. And then take your right foot and stack it on the outside of your left knee. Let the weight of the foot release the knee towards the floor. Let any tension that you're continuing to hold in the front of the hip go. In the spine. Release your right foot off. Feet are mat distance as you shift both of your knees to the left. Stack the outside of your left foot on top of the outside of your right knee. Let the weight of the left foot draw your right knee in and towards the floor. Allow any tension on the front of the right hip to go. Release the left foot back down to the ground, roll back to center. Draw both knees in towards your chest. Allow the low back to round towards the floor. Rock a little side to side. Maybe draw knees out and towards the floor. Opting to grab the outer edges of your feet or your big toes, taking the soles of your feet towards the floor. Another kind of test of how much external rotation did we create. Both knees to the chest. Drop the feet to the floor, let the knees roll in towards each other, and take 3 deep breaths, feeling the breath move deep into your lungs. Feeling the diaphragm drop down as you inhale. And as the lungs empty, the diaphragm releases and relaxes back up towards the heart. As you're ready, go ahead and roll over and press yourself up to a seated position. And that's it. Thank you. You're welcome to unmute if you would like.